Hey guys, it's Aaron from Solo's Hold. Today I want to go over the parts breakdown and assembly video. We'll kind of mock up and I'll explain things. This is the Blind Knight. This is the Rebel Orphan. This project, as you guys know, has been going on a year plus, and we are packing and shipping all the sabers now. But it's important that we go over some of these things. There's a couple crucial areas that I want you guys to be aware of when you guys are assembling them and taking them apart and stuff. Goth will be posting more media very soon about the chassis, and he'll touch on some of these things as well. So let's start with the Blind Knight. This is the Blind Knight. It's got several parts to it. The pommel is threaded in. It's vented for sound. Very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of hidden in there, so it doesn't take away from the screen accuracy of it. And the emitter comes off. Now this screw right here goes into this hole, and I want you guys, this is the first thing I want to talk about. These are interference fit, so there's no wiggle in them. I mean, there might be a teeny tiny bit, but to make them screen accurate, they have to come apart like this. They can't be threaded, because if you go look at the cartoons, that's what it looks like. So we did that. Now I want you guys, when you guys do the final assembly, I would take a little bit of Vaseline or a little bit of grease, silicone or something like that, and kind of just hit a little bit on this edge when you put them together, because they'll be snug until they get broke in. And we've been doing this type of assembly in like the Force Unleashed 2 sabers for, I don't know, better part of a decade now. So that's the one thing I want you guys to be really mindful of, okay? Because it's aluminum and it's soft, and there was no other way to make it accurate and do that and assemble that way. That way, you guys. But we did add a set screw on the back side right here. So if you guys want to take your emitters out, keep in mind you might just need to carry an Allen wrench with you if you're going to go cosplaying or trooping or whatever. So once that's in there, this goes all the way through both parts. This emitter can never come off, no matter what, as long as it's screwed together right like this. Now, like I said, I would use a little bit of grease. It's very common to use some Vaseline on some threads. Aluminum soft, and you can over tighten it, and we'll go over here and talk about that too. Don't reef on it too hard when you're putting it together, you know. This is common sense stuff. So the other parts. So here's the main grip, the emitter. There is also a shroud that goes on here. And it's got a hole here, a threaded hole here, and it uses the identical set screw. That's all that comes with this saber is 2 set screws. Once this goes on, once you have it painted here, this goes on and it is permanent. You can take it off if you really want to, but it goes like this. Like, it might be a good idea if you guys own taps. If you're, you know, if it's a little sticky, chase that. And then if you really want to go crazy, you can adhere it with a 2-part epoxy or something in there. It's not coming off though because of this set screw. But that's all a matter of how you guys choose to do it. They are DIY sabers. Like all of our sabers, we try to think of everything possible to get you guys 99.9% of the way there without having to machine anything, and then the installs. Now Goth's going to have to go over some of these other parts. Let me, the heatsink here. I want to talk about all the little parts now. The heatsink. This is going to be integrated with the chassis, and the chassis will be a full removable core on this. So this will go as part of the chassis. Oops. Inside the saber like that. So it'll be part of the chassis. Now I know Goth is suggesting on some of his versions of the chassis that you guys file, or if you guys own a mill or something, a little pot or a keyway in here for passages. Just anybody at home can do that. Just take your time, and like as usual, he always posts instructables on his website, which is goth3designs.com. I don't know the exact URL. I'll put it in the description of the video. Also, so we've got, this shroud goes on just like that, and it's snug. And then the control box is here. That goes in there. And the only other screw that goes with this saber, once you get that on there, you can epoxy this on as well if you want to. It'll be permanent once it's painted the way you like it. It'll use this tiny 440 flathead screw. There is a threaded hole, and this retains the control box onto the saber. Hold on a second.
Right there, there's a hole. Now, the LEDs for the side of the control box, they go in, and the light will be emitted from the chassis, like a light tube. I don't know, some of you guys are PC builders, but it's kind of that same idea, or an appliance. And they fit perfectly in here. You might want to take, I have a little bit of a flat spot on here, so the round peg will go in, or the square peg will go in the round hole, as the old saying is.
Snugly, you're going to want to do a tiny bit of fit and finish. You will grab, let me grab a little file. I hope you guys own little file sets. You can find them for probably like $4 or $5 for little file sets on eBay with free shipping. Or you can go to McMastercar.com, but in order to get it to fit, you want it to fit really, really snug. So you would take on the triangle side, right on the stem of this, and you file it flat a little bit. And then test fit it, test fit it, test fit it, till it locks in. You'll get the triangle, it'll sit in the pocket, the milled out pocket on the, and the same with the red one that goes in the rear. They only go in one way, the direction of the triangle. So, as I was saying, you have the shroud on now, onto the saber. You want to attach the control box to the hilt itself. And don't, whatever you guys do, don't crank down real hard on these screws with the Allen keys. You will strip them. All this stuff doesn't need to have gobs of torque to get it to stay where it needs to be. This little goes a long way. So if you guys aren't used to working with tools and stuff like this, just take your time. And then you just screw that on there. There's a threaded hole right there. Also, in the control box has a cover. This you're going to want to adhere to the inside of the control box. That way, if you ever need to get it off, you can pry it off. But just take your time. These small pins, these long pins, they go into the chassis. These are the main and auxiliary switch plungers. And they protrude through the top of the control box, and they run down into the chassis where the buttons will be mounted inside the chassis. There are 4 teeny tiny pins, like Graplex style pins, that go in the pin pockets on the side of the hilt handle. The fat side goes in and it sits in there. You're going to want to use a tiny little dab of Gorilla or whatever glue you guys choose to use. Just a little bit goes a long way, and those are slip fit into there. The D-ring, just like a lot of the guys, the V2 guys and other sabers with these, you're gonna, and I know Roman's Props has a D-ring tutorial. You don't have to cut it, you just have to pry it open a little bit and it'll go right in there, and then you can close it back up. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Once you guys get your stuff painted, these will get painted. These sit into these pockets on the side of the hilt. There's 6 of them, and you're going to glue these in too. These will be permanently attached at that point. And that's about all there is to this saber. It's pretty straightforward. Again, they're going to be a snug fit into here. A lot, you know. We had to come in. We had to file the burrs off from doing these operations. So last thing you want is a burr to catch up and make it hard for it to remove. So just take your time. A little bit of Vaseline on these. You know, if it's going to stay on your shelf or it's going to stay in your collection or in a case or whatever, no problem. Just and you can always take some Scotch-Brite and work the saber like this. Let me show you. Just like on the parts, go in one direction. It's like every saber we've done. This is your friend. Especially if you're going to paint these parts, you're going to want to, we've Scotch-Brited them and cleaned up all the burrs and everything like that. Spent a lot of time cleaning these parts up. But hit it with acetone. Always wash your parts with acetone, that way you get good adhesion when you go to paint them, okay? That goes in there. And you can fight with these, you can do whatever you want with them. So that's what you do. Just always go in one direction. That way the finish is uniform. And a lot of you guys are going to weather these, paint them, and do it. This is just kind of the normal stuff, but for the guys that are just joining the hobby and got onto the run, this is kind of, and we have some other videos on the channel that talk about weathering and talk about this, and we've been trying to show our secrets over the years and how we finish stuff and weather stuff, but just everyday stuff. So that takes care of that stuff. Let's move on to Rebel Orphan hilt. This has a pommel. And this shroud, here's the grip section and then the emitter section. Hold on a second. That shroud goes on there. So once you have your hilt painted, because this will be black and weathered underneath, the parts will align. So these two pockets that are underneath the shroud are vented for sound. They're hidden sound holes. This will line up. Line your hilt up. This part with that center. And then, of course, this would go on. Once you have that there, hold on a second. Go on here. This will be one of the last steps you do putting this together, because this is going to index where it's going to be permanently once the final step of the assembly. That goes there, and the faux control box for screen accuracy sits right into that track. And there's that. Okay, so you're going to want to very gingerly, I guess, just a little goes a long way. You're going to want to mix a two-part epoxy or whatever adhesive that you find that works best. Clean the surfaces you're going to make together with acetone or paint thinner or whatever. Let it dry real good. Wipe it down, and then you'll adhere that. That way this box, this shroud are locked onto this hilt piece. And once you do that, it'll be there forever. Then you can unscrew the emitter from the grip, and all that'll be indexed where you want it. It'll be perfect. It'll be a solid unit. So that describes that. Onto the emitter. Let me find a tool here. It has several parts to this lever, this button. There is a center that you will put in first, this lever, and it indexes about there. There's one screw that holds that assembly together, and it screws in and sits flush with the inside surface there. Then you will take, this will be one of the last steps in assembly, because this will be painted red. You'll take this button, you will glue it in there. Now make sure that you don't glue it in there until you are sure and ready that you are done with this. But this has nothing to do with the chassis or anything like that. This is purely aesthetic from the cartoon. So that little guy right there will get glued into the head of that screw, and that will be done. Go over here. We'll talk about the buttons, the switches, and the pins in a second here. This is the heatsink for the saber. You would use a thermal pad, just like we always do with the XPE2s. This drops in there, just like that, and you keep it in there however you want. Glue it, whatever, but it comes in and out just like that. There are, just like the V2, there are two sets of emitters. One, and this will be the blade adapter, okay guys? That locks in there like this. And then you'll have yep, this will be the actual, for the blade, shroud that goes on the end, or the emitter flange, I'm sorry, that goes on the end. That'll accept a 7/8 blade. The cartoon, there's smaller, it's probably like a 3/4 inch blade in the cartoon, but we use 7/8, and you can contact Obi Shane for a blade. The Canon will accept 1-inch blade. You got the heatsink in there. Now we'll talk about, this is the display emitter, and that's obviously smaller, and this will be when it's sitting in display mode or you're trooping and not using a blade or whatever. And then you can line that up like that and then put the retaining cap on. Done. So you have two, the blade adapter and the blade shroud, or the blade emitter flange, and then you have these display flange and tip. Talk about the D-ring. D-ring, separate it and put it back together right into that hole in that pommel cube. So let's talk about the buttons. These will be integrated into and work with the chassis from Goth 3 Designs. Again, little tiny Graflex type pins that'll get glued into there, and these will be assembled from the inside out. And let me talk about one more important thing. We included, for two switch setup, two Graflex style pin button plungers that you can use on either side of the saber. But for accuracy, there is a dummy plug, that because there's only one Graflex pin pocket in the cartoon sabers. So this is machined to match the contour, and you will put this into this pocket if you're only going to use a board, or if it's going to be fully static. You'll put it into this pin pocket, line it up, little adhesive, and you'll be done. Hold on a second. This will be the button delete plug that you will glue in there, and it has a contour that matches the outside radius. So if you look at the cartoon, there's no pin pocket here, but the only other solution we could think of, whoops, was to make two pin pockets for a main and auxiliary switch, and these pins glue into the little pin pockets there on each side. So it's totally up to you. We didn't know what else to do. And it's just a preference. So the solution is right there if you want it to be fully accurate. So once that's assembled, let me jump back to this. I forgot one part on the Canon, guys. This little block right there is contour for the outside diameter of that. You will glue that on. Make sure it's good and indexed right down the center. Boom, done. So again, recap. You'll have this all mounted right where you want it. And this screws together. And that'll be permanently attached there. Got that. Pommel goes on like this. Boom, done. So thanks for your time, guys. Remember, file to fit, little tiny fit and finish, little tiny fit and finish. And remember, file a little bit, test, file a little bit, test. You don't want to hog off too much material, but it's literally just a flat file like this. And this is your friend, and this concludes the parts breakdown for the Blind Knight and Rebel Orphan, and we appreciate all the support, and we hope you enjoy your sabers, guys. Thanks, and may the force be with you.